Some people say paranormal only exists in old houses, abandoned hospitals, or deep in woods. But sometimes it finds you in places that should feel safe. A nursery, an office building, a late-night train ride home. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 terrifying paranormal encounter stories from people who swear they experienced something they still can't explain. And by the end of this video, you might start paying closer attention to the sounds in your house after midnight. The baby monitor turned on by itself at exactly 2:17 in the morning. My wife and I had put our 6-month-old son to bed a little after 1. He'd finally fallen asleep after crying for almost an hour, and by the time we got back to our room, we were exhausted. The house was completely quiet. No TV, no traffic outside, no creaking floorboards, just silence. The monitor sat on the nightstand beside our bed, and for the last hour it hadn't made a sound. Then suddenly, the screen lit up. First, I thought maybe the battery was loose, or it had picked up some kind of signal interference. It wasn't unusual for the thing to crackle or buzz every now and then. But this was different. A soft, static hiss filled the room. Then I heard breathing. Slow, deep, heavy breathing. And it wasn't my son. I picked up the monitor and looked down at the tiny screen. The nursery looked normal. The crib was against the wall. The rocking chair sat in the corner. Moonlight spilled in through the curtains, painting everything in pale silver light. Our son was asleep on his back, not moving. But the breathing continued. It sounded like someone was standing right beside the camera, close enough that every inhale dragged against the microphone. My wife sat up beside me. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded. I turned the volume down a little and held the monitor closer. That's when a voice came through the speaker, barely audible. A whisper. "He's not alone." Every hair on my body stood up. My wife grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. "Was that you?" she asked. I couldn't even answer, because the camera started moving. Not the image shaking. The camera itself. Slowly, smoothly. Turning to the right, the screen drifted toward the far corner of the room. At first, there was nothing there. Just darkness. There was a patch of shadows near the closet door. Then the shadow shifted. Something stepped forward. Tall, thin, too tall to be standing in a child's room. Its body looked wrong somehow. It had long arms, narrow shoulders, and a head tilted slightly to one side. As if it was listening. It stood beside the crib, completely still. I dropped the monitor. My wife screamed, and both of us ran out of the bedroom and down the hall. I hit the nursery door so hard that it slammed against the wall. The room was empty. No one was inside. No figure. No movement. No sound except the small hum of the white noise machine. Our son was still asleep. The camera was pointed directly at the crib, exactly the way we had left it. For a second, I felt relief. Maybe we were both just tired. Maybe the monitor had glitched. Maybe our minds filled in the rest. Then I bent down and picked it up from the hallway floor. The screen was still on. The audio meter was still moving. Something was still making noise on the other end. I slowly raised the volume. The breathing was back, only now it wasn't coming from the speaker the way it had before. It sounded close. Too close. My wife's face changed. She went pale and looked past me. Very slowly, I turned around. The nursery door behind us was open. The hallway was dark. And from somewhere just over my shoulder, I heard a long, wet inhale. We took our son and left the house before sunrise. The next day, I checked the monitor's saved recordings. There was no footage of the camera moving. No whisper. No figure near the crib. Just one corrupted file time-stamped 2:17 a.m. It was completely black. But the audio was still there, breathing. And right before the clip ended, a voice whispered one final sentence. "Now he knows we're here." My boss told me one thing on my first night working security. Never check the archive footage from camera 7. He didn't smile when he said it. Didn't explain it either. Just handed me the keys, showed me the monitor room, and said, if camera 7 goes out, leave it alone. Or maybe the camera had been broken for years, and he didn't want me wasting time on it. The building was small. 3 floors, a lobby, a stairwell, and a basement used mostly for storage and electrical equipment. Most nights were painfully quiet. I'd sit in the security office for hours drinking bird coffee, watching empty hallways on a wall of screens. Nothing ever happened. Until one night at exactly 3:03 a.m., camera 7 went black. I looked up from my phone. The label under the dead feed read, Basement Hallway. I stared at it for a second, remembering what my boss had said. Then I laughed to myself. I opened the archive. If the camera had been glitching before it died, I figured I could at least tell maintenance when it started. The footage was loaded almost immediately, but it wasn't static. It wasn't a dead feed. It showed the hallway clearly. Only something was wrong. The image quality looked older, grainier, dimmer, like it had been recorded on outdated equipment, and there was someone in the hallway. A woman, standing at the far end. Her hair was long, dark, and hanging over her face. She wore what looked like a pale dress or maybe a hospital gown. It was hard to tell through the distortion. I frowned and checked the timestamp. October 14th, 2009. 3:03 a.m. That made no sense. The building hadn't even opened until 2016. I leaned closer to the screen. The woman started walking. Slowly, one step at a time. Her movements were unnatural. Not limping, not staggering, just delayed. Like each step happened half a second after it should have. The hallway lights in the video flickered as she passed beneath them. I remember telling myself it had to be some kind of corrupted file. Maybe old footage had been copied over from another system. But then she stopped directly in front of the camera. Her face was still hidden behind her hair. Then her head tilted up, very slowly, as if she knew someone was watching. I actually pushed my chair back. My chest tightened. The woman stepped closer, then closer again, until her face nearly filled the entire screen, and the video froze. At that exact second, an alarm began blaring from somewhere in the building. I jumped up and looked at the live feed wall. Camera 7 had come back online. The basement hallway was visible again. At first, it looked empty. Then I saw her, standing directly in front of the live camera. A woman with long dark hair covering her face, completely motionless. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the radio and called upstairs, even though I was the only one in the building. No answer. I should have stayed in that room. I know that now. But instead, I took the flashlight and went downstairs. The basement was colder than the rest of the building. The kind of cold that settles into your teeth. The hallway from camera 7 stretched ahead of me, lined with storage doors and exposed pipes. It was empty. No woman. No sign anyone had ever been there. Then my flashlight flickered, and from behind me, I heard the soft scrape of bare feet on concrete. I spun around. Nothing. I hurried back to the security office and slammed the door behind me. When I looked at the monitor wall again, camera 7 was black for the second time. I opened the archive again. The 2009 clip was gone. Deleted. Or maybe never there at all. I checked every file around that time. Nothing. Just regular footage. I sat there trying to steady my breathing, telling myself I was done messing with it. Then one of the other monitors changed on its own. Camera 3. The lobby. Camera 5. The stairwell. Camera 2. The parking lot entrance. One by one, every screen in the room switched to the same image. Camera 7. The basement hallway. And at the far end, the woman was standing there again. Only this time she wasn't facing the camera. She was facing down the hall, toward the security office, toward me. Then, all at once, every timestamp on every monitor changed to the same date. October 14th, 2009, 3:03 a.m. and someone knocked on the security office door. 3 slow knocks. I quit the next morning. My boss didn't even look surprised. He just nodded and said, "You checked it, didn't you?" I asked him what happened in 2009. He told me there was no building there back then, just an empty lot. Then he looked at me for a long time and said something I still think about. "Whatever's on camera 7, it isn't from the past. It's from the first time someone sees it." I met him on the last train home, just before midnight. I had stayed out later than I planned and missed the earlier train. So by the time I boarded, the car was almost completely empty. There was only one other passenger inside, a tall man sitting at the far end. Dark coat, dark gloves, pale face. He sat unnaturally still, with both hands folded in his lap, staring out the window into the tunnel. I noticed him when I boarded, then tried not to think about him. I took a seat near the middle of the car and pulled out my phone. The train pulled away from the station with that familiar metallic scream, and for a few minutes, everything felt normal. Just the rattle of the tracks, the buzz of the overhead lights, the occasional flicker of my own reflection in the window. Then I heard a voice from the other end of the car. "Daniel." I looked up immediately. My stomach tightened. That was my name. The man was staring right at me now. Not smiling, not blinking, just watching me. I glanced behind me to see if maybe someone else had boarded at the last stop. The car was still empty. "Do I know you?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, very slowly, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It looked like someone trying to imitate one. "You shouldn't have gone back there," he said. A chill moved down my arms. "What are you talking about?" He was taller than I thought, taller than the subway doors should comfortably allow. The lights on the train dimmed for half a second. 3 nights earlier, I had gone exploring with 2 friends inside an abandoned hospital on the edge of town. We weren't supposed to be there. The place had been shut down for years after a fire, and everyone in the area had stories about it. Most of them sounded fake. Doors slamming on their own, voices in the walls, patients who were never officially discharged. We went anyway. Inside one of the upper floors, we found a room none of us could explain. A single metal door with old symbols scratched into it. Marks all over the walls around it. Not graffiti, not random damage. Patterns, like warnings. One of my friends joked that we should open it. I laughed, but I was the one who touched the handle. The man took one slow step down the train aisle. "You saw something you weren't meant to see." I stood up from my seat. The train rocked hard through the tunnel. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear the tracks anymore. "How do you know about that?" I asked. He ignored the question. Instead, he took another step closer. "You opened the wrong door." I remembered that room instantly. The smell in the air, the dead silence behind the door, the feeling that the darkness on the other side wasn't just absence of light, but something waiting. We never went inside. At least, I didn't think we did. I remember opening the door only a few inches. I remember all of us panicking when we heard something move in the room beyond it. And I remember running. That was it. Or at least that's what I had told myself. The train began to slow for the next station. The brakes screamed. I looked toward the doors for maybe 1 second. Just one. When I turned back, the man was gone. The aisle was empty. The subway car was completely silent. The doors slid open. The platform outside was deserted. No footsteps. No movement. No sign anyone had left the train. No one could have passed me without me seeing. I stayed frozen for several seconds, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Finally, the doors closed and the train started moving again. My phone buzzed in my hand. "Unknown number." I opened the message. It said, "Next time, don't answer when we call your name." My mouth went dry. I typed back with shaking hands. "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "You already let one of us in." The overhead lights flickered. In the dark window beside me, I saw my reflection, and standing directly behind it, that man. I spun around. No one there. My phone buzzed again. Look under the seat. I didn't want to. Every instinct told me not to. But after a few seconds, I crouched down and looked beneath the plastic seat across from me. There was something carved into the metal floor. A symbol, the same one from the hospital door. Fresh, as if someone had scratched it there moments ago. Then the train speakers crackled. At first I thought it was the conductor. Then I heard whispering. More than one voice. All speaking at once. All saying the same thing. Daniel. I covered my ears and squeezed my eyes shut. The train began accelerating faster than normal, the wheels shrieking against the rails. When I opened my eyes, the route map above the doors was wrong. The stops had changed. Names I had never seen before were glowing on the display. The next station approached. The sign outside the window was completely black except for one line of white text. End of the line. The doors opened. Beyond them wasn't a platform. It was a dark hallway, peeling walls, burn marks, rusted hospital bed frames lined up in the distance. The abandoned hospital. The whisper came again, this time right beside my ear. Next time, don't answer. I ran. Not out the doors, the other direction. Straight into the next subway car. Then the next. Then the next. Every car was empty, every single one. And in every window, I could see that man walking at the same pace outside the train, keeping up with me in the darkness. I don't remember how I got home. I only know I woke up in my apartment just before sunrise with dirt on my shoes and a hospital wristband around my right arm. The wristband had my full name on it, and under the admit date, it simply read, "Tonight." I called both of the friends who went with me to that hospital. One number had been disconnected. The other belonged to a woman who said no one by that name had ever lived there. I never took the train again. But every once in a while, usually close to midnight, I still get a text from an unknown number. It's always the same message. We saved your seat. Three terrifying paranormal encounters. A voice in a nursery. A woman trapped inside impossible security footage. And a stranger on the last train who knew far too much. So tell me, which story disturbed you the most? And if you want more animated horror stories like these, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next time you hear your name whispered in the dark, you might want to pretend you didn't.